You want solutions? We got solutions for you, baby. When it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs and everybody talking about that big core four eventually disbanding like the Avengers in Endgame, this is the biggest and craziest idea that I think you could go out there and propose. And it's one that every single party involved probably hates, which makes it all the more worthwhile, in my opinion, to make a video about, because it's the offseason and because we have nothing else to talk about. So, let's go out there and discuss the Maple Leafs and their core four. Obviously, we know that Matthews and Nylander, these guys re-signed. They're going to be sticking around for a while. Mitch Marner was seen by many at the end of the playoff series against the Bruins as the odd man out to be. He's going to get traded. He's going to leave. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's so expensive. He's not worth the money, etc., etc., etc. But the last piece of that core four in Toronto, John Tavares, his contract is also expiring 1 year from now. $11 million a year till the end of 24-25. We had already made a video, or two actually, talking about the legal trouble that Tavares is in because his contract is going through a bunch of extra loops with the CRA and the signing bonuses there. He might owe millions and millions of dollars to the taxman here in Canada. But when it comes to what Tavares' future holds, if the Toronto Maple Leafs are not able to re-sign him, they're not able to keep him to a dollar amount that they see fit, could Johnny T find himself in a different situation? But what if all of this could have just been avoided? What if the Toronto Maple Leafs did not go through this entire song and dance with John Tavares? What if things were different 6 years ago? Take a look at this article published by Michael Ostrower on thehockeywriters.com. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and read this yourself. What if John Tavares re-signed with the New York Islanders? Oh, baby, that is a way to go out there and fix things. What if the Toronto Maple Leafs just did not put their foot in the door? What if John Tavares signed elsewhere? What if he signed with his former beloved, the first overall drafting New York Islanders team that he had started his NHL career on? Now, before we dive into the article or anything that the piece goes out there and talks about, let's just talk about how crazy and how pissy everybody was when this went down. Islanders fans, I mean, I can still see some of the anger there. I mean, it has been like 8 years, 7, 8 years since the entire thing happened where Tavares said that he wanted to stick around, he wanted to be a Leaf, or not a Leaf, excuse me, he wanted to be an Islander and he was okay being an Islander, and the fact that the contract negotiations were dragging out into the offseason was not a big deal, they're working on it, and then he left. He signed for cheaper than what he was going for on the market to play with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you saw Islanders fans absolutely livid after Johnny T left. They weren't able to trade him because he was very committed to the team in public. You don't want to trade a guy who's continuously saying that he wants to be there, but then, after free agency starts around, he leaves. And Islanders fans got a little bit cucked there. They could have traded him away for futures, for assets, for whatever, but they did not. They had Matthew Barzal coming in as a hot young center, rookie guy. He ended up winning the Calder Trophy in that season, and then John Tavares just straight up left. And you saw the outcry, right? Hey, John, you're a traitor, a liar, a snake, a fake. You should have told us. You would have gotten picks, you phony fake. You suck. You always suck, Tavares. You'll always be a loser. Always. Always. And you know what I'm saying. You should have told us. You snake, phony, fake. Yeah, remember that video? The guy in the crowd that was yelling at John Tavares when he was in the penalty box in Long Island? That was a really big deal. Islanders fans were livid. And it's now been 7 years, so who knows where that's at nowadays. But let's go back onto the article and read what it is that Michael Ostrower says in regards to the Islanders potentially being some sort of a destination for Johnny T. Take a look at this. 2018 offseason changes. Before Tavares' departure, the Islanders brought in Lou Lamoriello as GM and Barry Trotz as head coach in hopes of convincing Tavares to stay. Despite this, Tavares met with 6 teams following the 2018 draft without making a decision. So, the Islanders' mindset at the time remained the same. they still selected Wahlstrom and Dobson back-to-back in the first round. Following John Tavares' free agent meetings, he successfully negotiated with Lamoriello, resulting in an 8-year extension valued at $12.5 million a year, complete with a full no-trade clause. This new deal surpasses his current 7-year, $77 million, $11 million AAV contract by $1.5 million a year and $23 million overall. From this point, the Islanders still needed to add another top 6 forward and a goaltender. While Robin Lehner's signing addressed the team's goaltending needs and likely still occurs in this hypothetical scenario, Lamoriello would have targeted a top free agent winger. This list includes players like Nash, Van Riemsdyk, Perron, and Tyler Bozak. However, due to their limited cap remaining space, no deal is finalized. Now that is a pretty interesting blast to the past to think about, honestly. Like, if John Tavares stuck around with the Isles, then where exactly would they have spent other parts of their money? Also, interesting to note, back in this time frame, if John Tavares had signed a $12.5 million deal, which was kind of the going rate for him at that point in his career, I mean, when he was a free agent, he was offered a $13 million AAV contract with the Sharks, but he rejected that, signed $2 million less per year to go to Toronto. If he had signed $12.5 in New York, he would have been the #1 paid player in the NHL for a few years, alongside of Connor McDavid. I think now we can recognize that John Tavares isn't really in the same level as Connor McDavid, but still, back in 2017, 18, 2019, we were all kind of thinking that that was the appropriate dollar amount range, especially for a guy like Tavares who could find himself on the free agent market with that kind of star power. The article then talks about how the 2018-19 season with the Islanders would have been different. Had Tavares stayed with the Islanders, they may have won a few more games, possibly enough to surpass the Capitals for the top spot in the division for the regular season standings, although that would not have mattered much, since they would have faced the Hurricanes in round 1 instead of round 2, with a likely similar result occurring. The article then writes in the next part here, of course, the Islanders proceeded to go on 2 deep playoff runs in 2020 and 2021, but those runs would have been vastly different if Tavares had stayed. The Islanders would not have been able to trade for Jean-Gabriel Pageau or Kyle Palmieri at the 2020 or 2021 trade deadlines due to minimal cap space. In Pageau's 2 deep runs with the Islanders, he had 11 goals and 24 points in 41 games. In the 2021 run, Palmieri had 7 goals in 19 games. There is no world in which the Islanders would have been able to acquire either scorer, let alone both, to help them in the playoffs, likely settling for lesser talent through a trade. As well, this is all with the assumption the Islanders would have been able to retain their entire 2019 free agency class. Now, with Anders Lee closing in on a contract with the Blackhawks before returning to the Islanders, had he not been named captain following Tavares' departure, he may have left for the Blackhawks. He played a crucial role on Long Island on and off the ice once Tavares left, scoring at a near 30-goal pace in each of the following 4 seasons. Other players signed during the 2019 offseason include Varlamov, Nelson, and Jordan Eberle. And that is something really interesting as well. I didn't realize Anders Lee was on his way out, heading over to Chicago at that time. I mean, think about it. 2019 Chicago with, what is that, Artemi Panarin? No, Panarin was on Columbus at that time. Brandon Saad. That's it. With Patty Kane and Jonathan Toews. If they had Anders Lee there too, that would have been kind of crazy. But because of Tavares' departure, it allowed the Islanders to commit to Lee and say, hey, you're our captain now. So all in all, I think the Islanders actually did do some pretty okay work post John Tavares, and if they just kept John Tavares around, who knows how things could have changed. This is where the article at the end talks about Tavares in Toronto and whether or not he was really worth that money either way. Since joining Toronto, Tavares has only slightly outperformed Anders Lee, reaching the 30-goal mark just twice. The Leafs have only advanced to the second round of the playoffs once since his signing and have struggled to make major free agent signings or trades due to their salary cap constraints. New reports are suggesting whether or not Tavares may lose his captaincy. Given the uncertainties of the future, it's hard to predict how the 2020s would have unfolded, but it's highly unlikely the Islanders would have been better off if Tavares had stayed. While the Islanders could have used an elite goal scorer like Tavares in their 2020 and 2020 playoff runs, which were hindered by a lack of scoring talent, keeping Tavares on such an expensive deal would have been a mistake. The team would have struggled to acquire or retain much of their core that led them on deep runs, and Tavares has never played at a level to justify such decisions. He is a great player, and the Isles would have benefited from having him, but not at such a high cost. If he had been willing to take a team-friendly discount at the 8-year, $72 million range, it would have been a different story. Yowzers. Okay. It's not necessarily the commentary you want to hear, but it is an interesting discussion to have nonetheless. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to read more about this. There's a lot more in the article that we didn't cover here in this video, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below what things would have been like for Toronto or for the Islanders had Johnny T just stuck around in New York. Assume the deal gets done, how does the future look for both of these teams? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.